The colony world of Nu was beautiful. It sat at the edge of human space, orbiting a golden sun that painted the sky in shades of orange and pink every morning. 12 million people called this place home. They had left Earth many years ago, looking for new land and new beginnings. They built cities and farms. They raised children and grew old. They were happy. Commander Park Jinnah worked on the orbital defense station high above the planet. She had served there for 7 years. It was a quiet job. Nothing ever happened at the edge of space. She spent most of her days checking systems and watching the stars. Sometimes she wondered if she had wasted her life waiting for danger that never came. On that night she was drinking tea and looking at her screens when something strange appeared. 17 large shapes came out of fold space without any warning. They were ships, but not like any ships she had ever seen. They were black as the void between stars. They had no lights, no markings, no signals. Jinnah put down her tea. Her hands were shaking. She pressed the communication button and sent a message to the unknown ships. "This is Commander Park Jinnah of the new defense station. Please identify yourselves. Please respond." Nothing, only silence. She tried again. "Unknown vessels, you have entered human space. Please state your purpose. We mean you no harm." Still nothing. The black ships moved closer to the planet. They moved in perfect formation, like a single creature with 17 bodies. Jinnah sent an emergency signal to the planet below. Governor Lee received it in his office. He was a kind man with gray hair and tired eyes. He had led the colony for 15 years. Under his care, Nu had grown from a small settlement to a thriving world. "Governor," Jinnah's voice crackled through the speaker, "we have unknown ships approaching. They are not responding to any messages. I recommend we begin evacuation procedures." Stood up slowly. His heart was beating fast. "How many ships, Commander?" 17, sir. They are very large, bigger than anything in our records." The governor looked out his window at the peaceful city below. Children were playing in the parks. People were walking to work. None of them knew that death was coming. "Begin evacuation," he said quietly. "Get as many people to the transport ships as possible." The sirens started wailing across the planet. People looked up at the sky in confusion. They had never heard the evacuation alarm before. Many thought it was a drill. Some laughed and continued their daily work. Then the bombardment began. The first blast hit the capital city. A beam of white light came down from the sky and turned buildings into ash. The sound was like thunder, but 1,000 times louder. The ground shook. Windows broke across the entire continent. Park Jinnah watched from her station as her world died. Tears ran down her face, but she kept working. She fired the station's weapons at the black ships, but her shots did nothing. Their shields absorbed everything. "All ships, fire everything," she screamed into her communicator. "Fire everything we have." The defense fleet tried. 30 small patrol ships flew toward the enemy. They fired missiles and lasers with all their strength. The black ships did not even slow down. One by one, the patrol ships exploded like fireflies being crushed. On the surface, Governor Lee ran through the burning streets. He was helping people reach the transport ships. His clothes were covered in ash and blood. The sky above was filled with fire. "Keep moving," he shouted at the crowd. "Get to the ships, do not stop." A young woman named was running toward the transport area. She was a pilot, only 26 years old. She had been visiting her parents when the attack began. Now she could not find them anywhere. "Mother," she screamed, "Father." But there were too many people, too much noise, too much chaos. The crowd pushed her forward like a river. She had no choice but to keep moving. 3 transport ships were waiting at the launch site. They could hold about 15,000 people each. Governor was pushing everyone inside as fast as possible. "Go, go, go," he shouted. "We do not have much time." Reached the first ship. She turned around, still hopping to see her parents in the crowd. but all she saw were strangers with terrified faces. "Please," she begged a soldier nearby, "my parents." "Get on the ship," the soldier yelled. "There is no time." The first transport lifted off. The second followed moments later, was pushed onto the third ship. She fought her way to the cockpit and found the pilot unconscious at the controls. Blood covered his face. "I am a pilot," she told the crew member who tried to stop her. "Let me fly." She took the controls. Her hands were steady even though her heart was breaking. She had trained for this. She could do this. The transport rose into the sky. Below her, Nu was covered in flames. Cities that had taken decades to build were now just smoke and rubble. 12 million people were dying, and she could not save them. Then she saw the black ships turn their weapons toward the fleeing transports. "No," she whispered. "No, no, no." The first transport exploded. 15,000 lives gone in an instant. The second transport tried to dodge, but it was too slow. Another blast, another explosion, another 15,000 dead. Pushed her ship's engines to maximum power. Warning lights flashed everywhere. The ship was not designed for this kind of speed, but she did not care. She had to survive. Someone had to survive to tell Earth what happened. A beam of light passed so close to her ship that she could feel the heat through the hull, but it missed. By some miracle, it missed. She entered fold space and left Nu behind. In her rear sensors, she watched her burn. The black ships continued their bombardment even after there was nothing left to destroy. They were not just killing people. They were erasing everything. Every building, every road, every memory. Governor Lee died on the surface, still trying to save people until the very end. Commander Park Jinnah died on her station, firing her weapons until a black ship finally destroyed her position. 40,000 survivors made it onto the 3 transport ships. Only ship escaped. On Earth, Admiral was sleeping when her communicator buzzed. She was a small woman with sharp eyes and gray streaks in her black hair. She had served in the military for 30 years, but she had never fought in a real war. Humanity had been at peace for centuries. She answered the call and heard a broken voice filled with static. "This is of Nu, colony destroyed, 12 million dead, unknown enemy, please help." Sat up in her bed, her blood ran cold. "Repeat that," she said. "Nu is gone, everyone is dead, I am the only ship that escaped. The enemy, they burned everything. They did not even tell us why." Admiral rushed to the command center. Within hours, the United Defense Council was meeting. Leaders from every nation on Earth sat in a large room, their faces pale with shock. Ship had transmitted images before entering fold space. The council members watched in silence as a strange symbol appeared on the planet's surface, burned into the ground by the enemy ships, visible from orbit. "What does it mean?" someone asked. "We do not know," Admiral replied. "We have never seen these aliens before. We have no records of them, no contact, nothing." The room was silent for a long moment. Then an old man at the end of the table spoke. He was the president of Earth's United Council. His voice was calm, but there was fire in his eyes. "They killed 12 million of our people," he said. "They destroyed our colony. They did not warn us. They did not explain. They simply murdered our families and flew away." He stood up and looked at every person in the room. "We will find them, and we will make them pay." The vote was unanimous. Every nation agreed. Every leader signed the declaration. Humanity was going to war. 6 months passed after the fall of Nu. Earth had changed. The peaceful world that had known no war for centuries was now a world of fire and steel. Every factory, every shipyard, every workshop worked day and night. The sound of hammers and machines never stopped. Fleet Marshal Han stood on the observation deck of Earth's largest orbital station. He watched as thousands of warships took shape in the shipyards below. Sparks flew like stars as workers welded metal plates together. Transport vessels carried weapons and supplies in endless streams. Han was not a warrior. He had spent most of his career commanding small peacekeeping missions. He had never fired a weapon at another living being. But now, the entire military of Earth answered to him. It was a weight that pressed on his shoulders every moment of every day. "Sir," a young officer said behind him, "the latest numbers are ready." Han turned around. The officer handed him a tablet. He looked at the screen and felt his breath catch in his throat. 700,000 warships, 40 million volunteer soldiers. More people had signed up to fight than they could train. "This is madness," Han whispered, but he knew it was necessary. In another part of the station, intelligence officer worked in a dark room filled with screens and computers. She had not slept properly in months. Her eyes were red and tired, but her mind was sharp as ever. She and her team had been studying every piece of information about the enemy. They had sent ships to Nu to collect debris from the attack. They had analyzed energy patterns and traced the enemy's path through fold space. "We are calling them she told Admiral during a meeting. "The name comes from the symbol they burned into Nu. It means something like judgment in old Earth languages." Admiral looked at the symbol on the screen. It was simple, a circle with 3 lines through it, but it filled her with cold rage. "What do we know about them?" she asked. "Not much," admitted. "They have advanced shields. Their weapons are powerful but not impossible to beat. They fight in rigid formations. They do not seem to adapt during battle." "Weaknesses?" "Their formation tactics. If we can break their lines, they become confused. Also, they seem to have a single command structure. If we destroy their leaderships, the rest might fall apart." Admiral nodded slowly. "Keep working. I want to know everything about these creatures before we reach their space." On the survivor ship that had escaped Nu had become something of a hero. News channels showed her face everywhere. She was the woman who had outrun death, the pilot who had saved 15,000 lives. But did not feel like a hero. She felt like a ghost. She had been promoted to lieutenant commander and assigned to the flagship Remembrance. It was the largest warship ever built by humans, 3 kilometers long, carrying enough weapons to destroy a small moon. But it was just a metal box that took her further from the graves of her parents. She spent her nights watching recordings from Nu. She had found footage of the evacuation. In one video, she could see her father helping an old woman toward the transport ships. In another, her mother was carrying a child who had been separated from his parents. They had died saving others, told herself she should be proud, but all she felt was emptiness. One night, Fleet Marshal Han found her alone in the observation room, staring at the stars. "You cannot sleep either," he said. Turned around quickly and saluted. "Sir, I apologize, I did not hear you come in." Han waved his hand. "No need for that, we are all humans here." He walked to stand beside her. "What are you thinking about?" Was quiet for a moment. "I am thinking about whether I deserve to live." Han looked at her with sad eyes. "Many survivors feel that way. It is called survivor's guilt. But you must understand something, Lieutenant Commander. You lived for a reason. 15,000 people on your ship are alive because of you. And now, you will help us make sure this never happens again." "How?" asked. "How can we fight an enemy we know nothing about?" "We learn, we adapt, we become stronger." Han turned to face the window again. "Humans have always been good at one thing: we do not give up. No matter how many times we fall, we get back up. They do not know this yet, but they will." On the manufacturing moon of Titan, Engineer worked on something that would change the war. He was a thin man with thick glasses and hands that were always covered in grease. He had been a weapons designer before the attack, working on theoretical projects that no one thought would ever be used. Now those projects were very real. "This is a gravity lance," he explained to a group of military officers. He pointed at a large machine on the table. It looked like a cannon, but with strange rings around its barrel. It creates a focused gravity wave that can tear apart matter at the molecular level. Shields cannot stop it. Armor cannot resist it. One of the officers frowned. How do we know it works? Pressed a button. Outside the window, a small asteroid floated in space. The gravity lance hummed with power, then fired a beam of blue light. The asteroid did not explode. It simply came apart, turning into dust in seconds. The officers were silent. "We are installing these on every large warship," said. "They will not know what hit them." He worked 18 hours every day. He barely ate. He had lost his sister on Nu. She had been a teacher there, helping children learn about Earth's history. Now she was just another name on the list of the dead. Every weapon built was for her. Across the solar system, training camps prepared millions of soldiers for war. They practiced fighting in zero gravity. They learned to use new weapons. They studied tactics based on what little information they had. Marine Commander O led one of the elite boarding teams. He was a big man with a loud voice and a scar across his face from an old training accident. He pushed his soldiers hard because he knew what was waiting for them. "They are not like anything you have fought before," he told his team during training. "They are taller than us. They have armor built into their bodies. They will not surrender. They will fight until they are dead. So you must be faster, smarter, and meaner than them. Understand?" "Yes, sir," the soldiers shouted. I said, "Do you understand?" "Yes, SIR." Nodded. "Good. Now run the drill again. And this time do not let me catch any of you dying." As the months passed, the fleet grew larger. Ships that had been used for exploration were rebuilt for war. Mining vessels were converted into supply carriers. Even civilian transports were armed with weapons. The people of Earth watched the preparations with a mixture of fear and hope. Every family knew someone who had died on Nu. Every person felt the weight of what was coming. But they also felt something else, a deep, burning anger that would not go away. On the last day before the fleet departed, Fleet Marshal Han addressed his soldiers. He stood on a platform in the middle of the orbital station. Behind him, 700,000 warships waited in perfect formation. Their hulls gleamed in the sunlight. Their weapons were loaded and ready. Han's voice was broadcast to every ship, every station, every screen on Earth. "6 months ago," he began, "we lost 12 million of our brothers and sisters. They did not die in battle. They were not given a chance to fight. They were murdered by an enemy who gave no warning and showed no mercy." He paused. The silence was heavy. "Today we leave to find that enemy. We leave to show them that humanity is not weak. We are not afraid, and we will never forget our dead." His voice grew stronger. "They believed we would mourn and move on. They believed we would hide in our corner of the galaxy and pray they would not return. They were wrong." He raised his fist. "We are coming for them. 700,000 ships, 40 million soldiers, every weapon we can build, every ounce of strength we have. We will find them, we will face them, and we will teach them what happens when you attack humanity." The fleet began to move. One by one, the ships entered fold space. They disappeared into the void like raindrops falling into an ocean. Admiral stood on the bridge of her carrier, Soul's Fire. She watched Earth grow smaller in her rear sensors. "This is it," she said quietly. "No turning back now." Captain Shin, commander of the destroyer, felt her heart pounding as her ship made the jump. She was young, only 32 years old. She had never been in real combat, but she was ready to fight, ready to die if necessary. And, standing on the bridge of the remembrance, touched the picture of her parents that she kept in her pocket. "I am coming," she whispered. "I will find the ones who killed you, I promise." The largest fleet in human history flew toward the unknown. War was here. The human fleet traveled through fold space for 3 months. It was the longest journey any military force had ever made. Soldiers trained, Officers planned. Everyone waited. When they finally emerged near a dying red star at the edge of territory, the universe seemed to hold its breath. Captain Shin was the first to see the enemy. Her destroyer was part of the scouting force that moved ahead of the main fleet. She was checking her sensors when three shapes appeared on her screen. Patrol ships. They were smaller than the ones that attacked New, but they had the same black hulls and the same cold silence. Hands moved quickly across her controls. She did not feel fear. She felt only focus. "All weapons ready," she commanded. "Target the lead ship. Fire on my mark." Her crew worked in perfect silence. They had trained for this moment 1,000 times. Now it was real. Mark! They fired everything at once. Missiles streaked through space like angry fireflies. Laser beams cut through the void. The first ship tried to raise its shields, but it was too late. The missiles hit before the shields could form. The ship exploded in a ball of fire. Did not celebrate. She was already turning toward the second ship. "Fire again. Do not let them escape." The second ship tried to run. It turned and accelerated toward fold space, but that was faster. Another round of missiles caught the ship before it could jump. Another explosion lit up the darkness. The third ship almost made it. It was seconds away from escaping once weapons found it. This time, the explosion was smaller. The ship only lost its engines. It drifted in space, dead but not destroyed. "Did they send a message?" asked her communications officer. "Yes, Captain. One burst transmission before we hit them." Closed her eyes for a moment. They knew they were coming now. The element of surprise was gone. "Report to Admiral," she said. "Tell her we made contact. The enemy knows we are here." Hours later, the response came. 300 ships emerged from a massive station built into an asteroid. The station was covered in weapons, so many that it looked like a sea creature with 1,000 spines. Admiral studied the enemy formation from her carrier, Soul's Fire. She was calm, but her mind was racing. "They outnumber our vanguard," her tactical officer said. "We should wait for the main fleet." "No," replied. "If we wait, they will call for reinforcements. We need to destroy them now before more arrive." She pointed at the tactical map. "We will pull back slowly, make them think we are afraid. When they follow us into open space, the main fleet will surround them." "That is risky, Admiral." "Everything about this war is risky." Turned to face her crew. "Send the order. All Vanguard ships begin tactical withdrawal. Make it look real." The Vanguard fleet turned and began to retreat. The ships followed, just as had hoped. They moved in their rigid formation, like a wall of black metal pushing through space. The chase lasted 6 hours. They grew more confident as the humans kept running. They fired their weapons at the retreating ships, destroying dozens of smaller vessels. Then the trap closed. The main human fleet emerged from fold space in a perfect circle around the force. 700,000 ships appeared at once, blocking every direction. Fleet Marshal Hand's voice came through every speaker. "All ships, fire at will." The battle that followed would later be called the Battle of the Red Corridor. It was chaos and death on a scale no one had ever seen. Laser beams crossed the void in every direction. Missiles flew by the thousands. Ships exploded so often that the darkness of space was replaced by constant light. Captain Shin led her destroyer into the heart of the enemy formation. She dodged enemy fire with skill that seemed impossible. Her weapons destroyed one ship, then another, then another. "Stay in formation," she yelled at her crew. "Do not break formation." Beside her, other destroyers were not so lucky. She watched as ships she knew were destroyed by weapons. Friends she had trained with disappeared in balls of fire. But she could not stop to mourn. She had to keep fighting. On the flagship, Remembrance worked at her station with cold efficiency. She tracked enemy movements and relayed information to the other ships. Every ship she helped destroy felt like a small piece of justice. Contact bearing 047, she reported. 5 enemy cruisers moving toward our left flank. Redirect squadrons 12 and 13 to intercept, came the reply. The squadrons moved, the cruisers were destroyed, and the battle continued. Hours passed. The human fleet lost 12,000 ships, 12,000. It was a number that would have seemed impossible before the war. Now it was just a number on a screen. But they lost more, much more. The gravity lances that engineer had built worked exactly as he promised. When they fired, shields did nothing. Armor did nothing. The ships simply came apart, dissolving into clouds of dust. By the time the battle ended, the entire patrol fleet was destroyed. The asteroid station was a broken shell, its weapons silent, its corridors empty. Marine Commander O led the first boarding team into the station. His soldiers moved carefully through the dark hallways. Their lights cut through the smoke and dust. Their weapons were ready. "Stay alert," whispered. "They may be waiting for us." They found the first body in what looked like a control room. It was tall, nearly 3 meters, with a hard shell covering its body. Its eyes were compound like an insect's, and they reflected the light from the soldiers' lamps. "Is it dead?" one soldier asked. Approached carefully, he poked the body with his weapon. It did not move. "Dead," he confirmed, "but careful, there may be more." There were more, but they were all dead. They had chosen to die rather than be captured. Many had destroyed themselves with their own weapons. Others had poisoned themselves. Not a single living was found. Worse, the computer systems had been destroyed too. Every screen was broken. Every storage device was fried. They had erased everything before they died. "They really did not want us to learn anything," said as he looked at the ruined computers. But Intelligence Officer was not ready to give up. She brought her team to the station and spent days searching through the wreckage. They found fragments, pieces of data that had survived the destruction. It was enough. "We found there," told Fleet Marshal Han in a meeting after the battle. She pointed at a star map on the screen. "It is called Prime, 12 light years from here. Our sensors detected fold space trails leading directly to it." "How many ships are defending it?" Han asked. "Based on what we recovered, approximately 9,000 vessels, plus orbital stations and ground defenses." Han looked at the map for a long moment. 9,000 ships. His fleet still had over 600,000. The numbers were in their favor. But he remembered the 12,000 ships they had just lost. He remembered the faces of the captains who would never return home. "What do we know about them themselves?" he asked. Pressed another button. Images appeared on the screen, the bodies that team had found. "They are," she explained, "hard shells, compound eyes. They seem to have a hive-like social structure with different classes for different jobs. The ones we found were soldiers. They were designed for fighting." "Designed?" "Yes, we believe they modify their own biology for specific purposes. Soldiers are grown to be soldiers. Workers are grown to be workers. It is very efficient but also very rigid. They do not adapt well to unexpected situations." Han nodded slowly. "That matches what we saw in the battle. When we broke their formation, they became confused." "Exactly. If we can take out their command structure, the rest may fall apart." Admiral spoke up from the corner of the room. "Then we know what to do. We go to Prime. We destroy their command structure. We end this war." "And then what?" Han asked. "Do we destroy their entire species? Do we burn their world like they burned new?" The room was silent. No one wanted to answer that question. Han turned to look at who was standing near the door. "Lieutenant Commander, you lost more than anyone here. What do you think we should do?" Was surprised to be asked. She thought for a moment before answering. "I want them to pay for what they did," she said quietly. "I want them to know the pain they caused us, but—" she paused. "I do not know if I want to become like them, killing millions who had nothing to do with the attack." Han nodded. That is the question, is it not? How far do we go before we become the monsters? He stood up and walked to the window. Outside, damaged ships were being repaired. Bodies were being collected for burial. The cost of war was everywhere. "We will go to Prime," he announced. "We will defeat their military, and when we do, we will find out why they attacked us. Then we will decide what comes next." The fleet began preparations for the final journey. The war was not over yet. The human fleet arrived at Prime in 3 waves. They emerged from fold space at different points around the planet, forming a perfect circle that blocked every escape route. When the final ship appeared, it was completely surrounded. Fleet Marshal Han looked at the planet through his window. It was gray and brown, with patches of dark green that might have been forests or cities. 9,000 warships hung in orbit, their black hulls forming a protective shell around their world. "They are ready for us," Admiral said from her position beside him. "They have been ready since the Red Corridor," Han replied. "They knew we were coming." On the bridge of the Remembrance watched her sensors carefully. The fleet was larger than she had expected. Their ships were bigger too. These were not patrol vessels, but true warships designed for heavy battle. She thought about Nu. She thought about her parents. She thought about the 12 million people who had died without knowing why. "Whatever happens today," she whispered to herself, "I will not run again." Admiral ordered the communication arrays to broadcast a message on all frequencies. She had recorded it earlier, and her team had translated it into every language pattern they had recovered from systems. Her voice echoed across space. "This is Admiral of the Human Defense Fleet. We have come from Earth to seek justice for the destruction of our colony world Nu. 12 million of our people died in your attack. We demand to know why." "Silence. Respond to our message and we will listen. We did not come here only to destroy. We came to understand. If there has been a mistake, we can discuss it. If there is a path to peace, we will consider it." "Silence. But if you choose violence, we will answer with violence, and we will not stop until this war is over." For a long moment, nothing happened. The 2 fleets hung in space like armies facing each other across a battlefield. Then they opened fire. Thousands of weapons lit up at once. Beams of energy and clouds of missiles flew toward the human fleet. The first wave of human ships took heavy damage. Dozens exploded before they could react. "All ships engage," Han shouted. "Formation Alpha 7, carriers stay in the back, destroyers break their lines." The battle for Prime had begun. Captain Shin pushed her destroyer into the heart of the fighting. Her ship twisted and turned, dodging enemy fire while dealing damage of its own. She had become one of the most skilled pilots in the fleet during the months of travel and training. "Target those command ships," she ordered. "The big ones with the extra antennas, those are the leaders." Her weapons officer found the targets and fired. The gravity lances tore through shields like they were made of paper. One command ship fell apart, then another, and suddenly a section of the fleet became confused. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation started drifting aimlessly. "It is working," shouted. "Intelligence was right. Take out the leaders and the rest fall apart." But they were not helpless. They adapted faster than anyone expected. New command ships moved forward to replace the destroyed ones. The confused ships regrouped, and the defensive fire became even more intense. On the 5th day of the siege, the human fleet had lost 80,000 ships. 80,000. The number was so large that it had stopped meaning anything. People just looked at the screens with empty eyes. Marine Commander O and his boarding teams had been busy too. They had captured several damaged vessels, hopping to find survivors who could answer questions. But every time, they found only the dead. They continued to destroy themselves rather than be captured. "Why do they do this?" asked himself as he walked through another ship filled with bodies. "Why die instead of talk?" On the 8th day, something changed. was at her sensor station when she noticed an unusual signal coming from the planet's surface. It was not military. It had no weapon signature. It was something else. She isolated the signal and ran it through the translator program. What came out made her freeze. It was singing, high-pitched, clicking sounds that formed a melody, and behind the melody she could hear words. Children's words. She ran to find Fleet Marshal Han. She found him in his quarters, looking exhausted. He had not slept more than a few hours in days. "Sir," she said, "you need to hear this." She played the recording. The strange singing filled the room. Han listened with tired eyes. "What is it?" he asked. "It is from the surface. From what looks like a civilian center, schools, hospitals, residential areas. Sir, there are children down there, families, not just soldiers." Han closed his eyes. Of course there were. There were a civilization, not just an army. They had families just like humans did. "How many?" he asked. "We cannot be sure, but based on the population readings, possibly billions." Billions. Han felt his chest tighten. They had come here ready to destroy their enemy, but destroying a military fleet was one thing. What came after was something very different. "Sir," said quietly, "I lost my parents on Nu. I wanted revenge more than anything. But," she paused, struggling to find the right words, "if we bomb their cities, if we kill their children, how are we different from them?" Han looked at her for a long moment. She was young, but she understood something that many older people had forgotten. "We are not them," he said finally. "We will never be them." He stood up and walked to the command center. His officers looked at him, waiting for orders. "What are our losses?" he asked. 82,000 ships destroyed, sir. Approximately 2 million crew lost." 2 million. Han felt the weight of every death pressing on his heart, but he had made a decision. "Send a message to the fleet," he commanded. "Tell them we are willing to discuss terms. If they surrender their military vessels, we will not attack their planet." His officers stared at him in shock. "Sir," Admiral said carefully, "they killed 12 million of our people. I know what they did." Han's voice was hard. "I remember every face, every name, every child who died on Nu, but we came here for justice, not genocide. If there is a way to end this without becoming monsters ourselves, we must try." The message was sent. For hours there was no response. The battle continued. More ships died on both sides. Then, on the 9th day, a signal came from the flagship. "Human Commander," the translated voice said. "This is Supreme Commander of the Defense Force. We request communication." Han felt his heart skip a beat. "Respond. Tell them I will speak with them." The communication channel opened. For the first time, humans spoke directly. His voice was strange, a mix of clicks and hums translated into human words. "You have defeated our fleet. Your weapons are stronger than we expected. We cannot win this battle." "Then surrender," Han said. "Give up your ships and we will spare your world." "It is not that simple." There was a pause. "You deserve to know the truth. What happened to your colony, it was not meant for you." Han frowned. "What do you mean?" "For centuries we have been at war with another species. They look similar to you. They use similar ships. They colonize planets in similar patterns. When we detected your colony, we believed they had returned. We believed we were protecting ourselves from an ancient enemy. You did not even try to communicate. You just attacked. We were afraid." Another pause. "Fear makes creatures do terrible things. We saw only what we expected to see. We did not think. We did not ask questions. And 12 million of your people died because of our fear." Han was silent for a long moment. It was not enough. An apology could not bring back the dead. A mistake did not erase the pain. But it was something. It was a beginning. "What do you propose?" he asked finally. "Let us meet, face to face. Let us discuss how to end this war without more death, please." Han looked around the command center. His officers watched him with tense expressions. Some wanted to keep fighting, some wanted revenge, but he had to decide. "We will meet," he said. "Send coordinates for a neutral location. But know this, if this is a trick, we will destroy everything you hold dear." "It is no trick. I give you my word as a commander." The meeting was arranged. The battle paused, and for the first time since the war began, there was hope for something other than death. The meeting took place on a small station between the two fleets. It was built quickly, a neutral space where humans could face each other without weapons between them. Fleet Marshal had brought only a few people with him. Admiral came for military matters. Intelligence officer came to verify what the said. Captain Shin came as security, and came because Han wanted her there. "You lost more than anyone," he told her before they left. "You deserve to hear their explanation." The Supreme Commander was waiting for them inside the station, had expected a monster. She had expected something cold and evil, the kind of creature that could kill millions without feeling anything. What she saw was something else. Was old. Its shell was cracked and faded with age. Its eyes moved slowly, as if every movement hurt. Behind it stood several other, younger, stronger, but clearly following their elder's lead. "Thank you for coming," said through the translator device around its neck. "I know this is difficult for you. It is difficult for us as well." Han did not waste time on greetings. "Explain. From the beginning, tell us why 12 million of our people had to die." Made a sound that might have been a sigh. "Many cycles ago, before your species existed, we fought a war against a race called the... They looked similar to you, 2 arms, 2 legs, similar ships, similar technology. The war lasted for 1,000 cycles. Billions died on both sides." The old creature paused, and could see something in its compound eyes that looked like pain. "We finally defeated them. We thought they were extinct, but we never forgot the fear. We taught our children to watch for their return. We built detectors to find their ships, and when your colony appeared at the edge of space, matching every pattern we had learned to fear. You attacked without question," said coldly. "Yes, did not make excuses. We were afraid. We saw what we expected to see. We did not stop to think that there might be another explanation, and for that 12 million of your people died. There are no words that can make that right." The room was silent, felt tears forming in her eyes, but she did not let them fall. "So it was all a mistake," she said finally. "My parents died because you were afraid of ghosts." Turned to look at her. "You lost family. Everyone, my mother and father, my friends, my home, everything I had." The old was quiet for a moment. Then it did something unexpected. It lowered its head until it almost touched the floor, a gesture that even without translation clearly meant submission and regret. "I cannot bring them back," said. "I cannot undo what was done, but I can offer you something else. Accountability, justice, whatever you need to begin healing." Han stepped forward. "What exactly are you proposing?" The negotiations lasted for days. Every claim they made. She found records of the war, images of ships that did look remarkably human. She found evidence that the attack order had come from a military council acting on old protocols, protocols that no one had thought to question in 1,000 years. The peace terms were severe. The military would be reduced to 10% of its current size. They would have only enough ships to defend there, nothing more. They would pay reparations to human colonies for 300 years. Resources, technology, knowledge, whatever humanity needed to recover from the war. Their space would remain open to human observers forever. No secrets, no hidden weapons, complete transparency. And on Nu, they would build a memorial. Every name of every victim would be carved in stone that would last for. Workers would tend the site forever, making sure no one forgot what had happened. Not everyone was happy with these terms. Some humans wanted more. They wanted destruction. They wanted them to suffer as they had suffered. Admiral spoke for many when she confronted Han after the agreements were signed. "This is not enough," she said. "They killed 12 million people. They should pay with their lives." "How many lives?" Han asked. "A million, a billion, their entire species. Where does it end?" "It ends when justice is served." "And what is justice?" Han turned to face her fully. "Is it making them feel the same pain we felt? Is it killing their children like they killed ours? Tell me, Admiral, if we bomb their cities, if we murder their families, will that bring back the dead?" Did not answer. "We came here for vengeance," Han continued. "I understand that, I felt it too, but somewhere along the way I realized something. Vengeance does not heal, it just spreads the wound to someone else." He looked out the window at the two fleets, still hanging in space, waiting to see if peace would hold. "We have a choice," he said. "We can become the monsters who destroyed New, or we can be something better, something that our children and can be proud of. I choose to be better." 5 years passed. Commodore, she had been promoted twice since the war, returned to New with her own carrier group. The planet was still dead. Its surface was gray and empty, the cities just shadows of what they had been. But in the middle of the largest city's ruins, something new had risen. The memorial wall stretched as far as she could see. Stone pillars covered with names reached toward the sky. 12 million names, carved with perfect precision by workers who had spent years on this single task. Walked among the pillars until she found the section marked for her district. Her heart was pounding as she searched the names. There, her father's name, and next to it her mother's. She touched the stone. It was cold under her fingers, real, permanent. "I came back," she whispered, "like I promised." Footsteps approached behind her. She turned and saw Fleet Marshal Han, now retired from military service. His hair had gone completely gray, and he walked more slowly than before, but his eyes were still sharp. "I wondered if I would find you here," he said. "I come every year on the anniversary," looked back at the wall. "I thought it would get easier with time. It does not." Han stood beside her and looked at the names. "Grief is not something you get over. It is something you carry with you. The weight never disappears. You just get stronger so it feels lighter." They stood in silence for a while. In the distance, could see workers still adding finishing touches to the memorial gardens. Nearby, a group of human visitors walked through the site, reading names and leaving flowers. And among them, she noticed something strange. A group of children, human and walking together. The human children were pointing at things and talking. The young ones were clicking in their strange language. Neither group understood the other's words, but somehow they were communicating anyway. "Look at that," Han said softly. Watched as a human girl, maybe 7 or 8 years old, offered a flower to a young. The alien creature took it carefully, examined it with its compound eyes, then made a sound that might have been laughter. "Did we do the right thing?" asked, showing mercy, letting them live. Han watched the children for a long moment before answering. "We came for vengeance," he said. "We found something harder instead. Justice asks us to punish. Wisdom asks us to prevent. We chose wisdom. But the dead cannot return. Nothing can change that. But perhaps their children can live in a galaxy where this never happens again." He turned to face her. "Those children down there, human and playing together, they have never known war. They do not carry the hate that we carry. Maybe that is the real victory, not destroying our enemy but making sure our never need to fight them." Thought about her parents. She thought about what they would say if they could see this. Her father, who had spent his last moments helping a stranger reach the evacuation ships. Her mother, who had died carrying a child that was not her own. They had died saving others. They would want others to keep saving others. "Perhaps," she said finally, and for the first time in 5 years she meant it. She touched her parents' names one last time, then turned and walked toward the gardens. The human girl and the child were still playing with the flower, trying to figure out if it could be planted in the memorial's new soil. "Do you need help?" asked them. The girl looked up with bright eyes. "We want to plant it, but we do not know how deep the hole should be." Knelt down beside them. The child watched her curiously, its head tilted to the side. "About this deep," she said, digging a small hole with her hands. "Now put the flower in gently. Yes, like that. Now cover the roots with dirt." The three of them worked together. Human, and a woman who had once wanted to burn this entire species to ash. When they were done, a small flower stood in the middle of the memorial garden. It was tiny and fragile, but alive. "Will it grow?" the girl asked. Looked at the flower, then at the memorial wall with its 12 million names, then at the child who was watching her with something like hope in its strange eyes. "Yes," she said, "I think it will." Behind her, Fleet Marshal Hand smiled and walked away. His war was over. His soldiers had come home. And maybe, just maybe, they had won something more important than any battle. They had won the future.